90% of real estate agents end up failing. They become a statistic. Like, what did you do when you were starting over, new state, didn't know anybody, starting from ground zero? What were some of those immediate things that you did that helped launch your career out here in Arizona?
Yeah, putting the work ethic aside, because it takes that work ethic. You have it, and quite frankly, I don't mean to boast about myself, but I have it. I have an insatiable work ethic. The number one thing was something I learned when I was selling real estate in Cincinnati. As I said, I got my license in 1967. I was still in school, so I would sell real estate part-time for my dad's firm when I was home in the summer. And it was tough in the beginning. It's a great question, because all new agents find it tough to get listings. And listings, in my view, are, the cliche, the name of the game. Without listings, it's very hard to get buyers. And so you build a business around inventory, as most every business in the world is built around having inventory. But as a new agent, how do you get listings? I even had my dad's firm as a card. Like, hey, I'd go in, my dad owns the firm, we'll give you special stop, but it was tough in the beginning. But I learned something. After a few months of struggling when I was getting started, I thought, what can I do? This is ridiculous. And this is embarrassing, because I'm, Mr. Hague, Harold Hague's son. And, it's embarrassing that I can't get listings. And so I came up with an idea, and this changed my entire trajectory in real estate. And the idea was a program called Make Every Agent Your Listing Agent. Make every agent your listing agent. And it was just an idea. I thought I had nothing to lose. So what it was, I started marketing into my community that, hey, talk to me about listing your home. When you list with me, I have this cool, unbelievable, different thing. I call it a position against tradition. I'm not a traditional realtor. I've got this program where when you list with me, you list with everybody. Every agent in Cincinnati will be just like your listing agent. Talk to me. So I got calls. I went in and I said, here's what I do. Back then, by the way, typical commission, rather than being like 5 or 6, was 7. Doesn't matter. Let's just call it 6. I would go in and say, the 6% commission you'll pay me, I co-broke the whole thing. I make every agent in Cincinnati like they're your listing agent. They sell your home, they make the whole thing. I only make 6% if I sell it. And people would say to me, why would you do that? I told them the truth. I'm brand new in the business. I need something to get started. I'm going to give you an unbelievable advantage, doubling the amount that every agent makes and giving them the opportunity to market your home if they want to try to find a buyer if you list with me. And I said, how can you, and by the way, if you're, the old Russell Shaw, no hassle listing, fire me. And I didn't know, of course, Russell at the time or that, but it was basically, and if you're not happy, I'll cancel the listing anytime. You have nothing to lose. Give it a try. I mean, agents who are showing homes are going to make twice as much selling your home as any home in the neighborhood. I listed the next 10 homes in a row. I mean, people couldn't say no to it. And incidentally, I did sell one myself. It got me started in the business. I did sell one myself, made the 6%. 3 of my home sellers bought homes from me, so I made 3 sales there. The other 9 listings that I sold, I didn't make anything, but so what? It got me started. Until my dad found out. He was ticked. He found out about it because the agents in the firm went to him and complained, well, look at what your kid's doing. And he didn't know about it. He calls me in and he says, you can't do this. And I said, why not? I'm getting going. It's gotten me started. And I said, why? I'm making money for the firm and I couldn't get. He says, Greg, he said, I get it. He said, but guess what? You can't, because all the rest of the agents are going to leave. They're going to be so ticked. He said, I got to run a brokerage. And but you asked me how that helped me in Arizona. I didn't do that program in Arizona. What it taught me is what I believe is the single biggest mistake, Josh, that agents make. And that is they're all about selling themselves and they never have a product. They never have a unique formula, something to sell in addition to themselves. I learned that. And when I hit the ground in Arizona, I developed a series of programs over the years that when I marketed for listings, number one, I had a compelling message, just like make every agent your listing agent, something to always get in the door. And then when I went in, I sold 2 things. Thing number 1 was me, but thing number 2, which was bigger, was this formula I have that is better for selling your home than what other agents are offering. And so it was never me against other agents. It was my formula against the traditional method for selling home. And I believe it was my second year. I worked for Realty Executives when I came out here. Dale Rector, friend of mine, the broker back then, Dick Baxter, one of the finest men you'd ever know. Dick was amazing. So I worked for Realty Executives, and I believe it was the second year that I was here, I won every award at the Scottsdale board. I remember Dick called Roseanne, because I'm so busy, I don't go to parties and stuff, and said, is Greg coming to the Scottsdale Association Awards? They had awards banquets back then. And Roseanne says, he doesn't do that stuff. And Dick says, well, he really needs to, because he won top listing, top sale. And I'm not boasting. I was working hard. Other agents work hard, but it was the formulas that I was using that enabled me to have that kind of success. So that's what got me going, is using the formula that I could tell you about that, but I'd used a series of formulas over the years. Right now in Paradise Valley, I have this private home marketing program. It's a pre-launch program where I talk to sellers, and my agents do, about how silly it is to just throw homes on the market, that you need to build anticipation, build excitement before you put it in MLS. And it's not just private marketing. It's not just off market. It's a product launch formula, home launch formula that launches homes on the market the way Apple might launch an iPhone, its new iPhone 10X or whatever it was, where it got people standing in line. So all these years, it's always been, I've had some kind of formula that I go out, and I'm really selling the formula, Josh, more than me.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, the consumer, the seller in this case, it's all about what's in it for me. Like they don't necessarily care about that you're number one or how great you are. It's how are you going to best solve my problems?
Yes.
And it just sounds like you just did a brilliant job on your listing presentation of convincing them that you could solve their problems by having these special formulas.
And in the marketing, I think the single biggest problem that agents have is not getting in enough doors. Every agent wants more appointments, and it's why they would buy leads on Zillow, when I would say to them, gosh, if you knew how to build your brand and advertise yourself, you'd never need to buy leads from anybody else. You'd be able to generate your own. And so, but the answer is yes. It's a combination of knowing what to say on listing appointments, having this formula, but also having a good, compelling marketing message to get in more doors.
Yep. Love it. So then, so you started off having a successful career as a real estate agent, and then, you create the number one ranked luxury brokerage in Arizona. How does it transition? Was it just one of these things out of, you had so much business going on that you had to expand and grow, or did you have a vision with seeing your father create a successful brokerage? I mean, was that kind of always the end game goal, or how did it transition into becoming this successful brokerage for you?
Yeah, great question. It just was, I started in South Scottsdale. I remember the first neighborhood that I farmed in 1981 when I moved out here, and Charlie and I were friends. We were working in the same Realty executive office, was 82nd Street, just south of Chaparral. It's an area of Butler-built homes, and then there's some Hallcraft homes around it. Then, as I became successful in that neighborhood, I moved into McCormick Ranch neighborhood, though everybody out here would know McCormick Ranch, became very successful there, and that went on over a period of years. And then I just decided that I wanted to go upscale. I mean, it was really, I'd love to say that there was some method to it, but it was just like, I want to be a Paradise Valley luxury home agent. And so I designed, before I even started marketing into Paradise Valley, and this would have been 15, 20 years ago, I designed like I said, a program, an entire program that I thought would resonate with Paradise Valley residents better than the ordinary way that other realtors there were selling homes. Launched it, and then built that brokerage, became a Christie's broker, and brought on a lot of really great people. They're successful. Chris Cara, Shane Ashcraft, all dear friends of mine now that are mega successful in Paradise Valley. They all started with me, brand newly licensed. I hired Shane from Houston's Restaurant. Chris Karras had been a friend of mine for years. So that's what happened. I just decided I want to build out a business model, build out a product that I thought would appeal to the Paradise Valley market, and then launched it with the kind of advertising that I was talking about this morning on the webinar. I did a webinar this morning on marketing, how I've used the Paradise Valley Independent newspaper, which I have here. I even have an ad on the front page, how I used that over the past 15 years as almost my sole advertising vehicle to build a brand. And I actually taught that a little bit on a webinar this morning. Most people aren't into print media anymore. And I was talking about how you can leverage print media effectively.
Yeah, love it. So then, with 50 years of experience in the real estate industry, because you've seen a lot of changes. I'm sure, kind of like we talked about before we hit the record button, a lot of good changes and probably a lot of not so good changes. But what would be, if you could narrow it down to a few just fundamentals that just seem that it hasn't mattered in your 50-year career, it's like, hey, these fundamentals have always applied to go out there and create success, and real estate agents need to identify these fundamentals, master these fundamentals. I mean, are there some timeless truths that you've discovered that worked back then and work today and that agents must adopt?
100% yes. First and foremost, before one would learn anything, I believe one needs to learn how to market. I think the single biggest deficient skill that isn't taught the way it should be taught today is how to market effectively to make the phone ring. And it's tough. It's not easy, but it's very doable. There's a formula that one can use to make the phone ring. And I'm talking with sellers, not with buyers. This is purely seller. Everything I teach is seller-based. It's a lot easier when you have good listings to make the phone ring with buyers. So that's number one, is become an expert at marketing. So that's number one. Number two, understand that marketing cannot be done in a scattergun way. You must take whatever that message is. You must know how to do it. You must have confidence in it. And then you must continue to impact the same demographic over and over and over. And I call it the rule of 90. You should not even expect one single home seller call until you have marketed your message into whatever your seller demographic is. Could be a 300 homes, 5,000 homes, depends on your budget. That isn't the point. It must have impacted those sellers 6 times over 90 days. And then you should expect in that 4th month, you should expect 20%. That is, if you're marketing to 1,000 homes, and there's a 6% turnover, that's 5 homes a month that are by turnover that'll be listed. And so you should expect 1 call in the 4th month from that 1,000 homes, because that's 60 homes a year, 5 a month. And that's what you would expect. And then you can expand on that and you'll get it. And then you learn how to list every home every time, as I say. So that's skill number 1 is the marketing, getting in more doors. And there's multiple ways to market, but it's the message that matters. The median. Don't get caught up in the median. Get caught up in the message, having an amazing message that creates curiosity, that is threaded with believability and credibility. I've got all these little parameters that I teach. And the bottom line is, so that's number 1, getting in more doors, knowing how to do that. Number 2 is what I'd label it, the perfect listing presentation, but having a listing presentation that starts before you even arrive. What I've taught for years, I learned it many years ago, is to have people do certain things that make people like you before you even arrive at the door, and thank you when you arrive at the door and start talking with you about yourself. It has to do with a personal brochure pre-delivery, a personal gift pre-delivery. So there's a process where you almost can't lose a listing. And so those would be, in my view, it's the combination of, and then you have to know how to sell them. But really, in my view, knowing how to sell homes, most agents know how to market homes. The vehicles for marketing homes are pretty pat and they work well, including, as much as I don't like it, Zillow. Zillow can be an asset in today's world in marketing homes. The thing about that is, it's not a matter of that. Agents have to become experts at getting prices down. Typically, sellers list their homes a little bit high. And so you need to really become an expert at getting sellers to list their homes as reasonable as they can, and then getting them down quickly, because many sellers do list too high. That's just a reality. And I don't even have heartburn with that, because Josh, it's their house. They've made the payments and they deserve to try, as long as they're not crazy and wacko about it, which is going to hurt them. They deserve to try to get a good price. So I'm probably over talked it, but that's the formula that I look at, with the number 1 skill that's missing being knowing how to market in a way that makes the phone ring so you're on listing appointments every week.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like those fundamentals, because you've also experienced a lot of ups and downs, right? And I always sit there and say there's never a bad market. it's always good for somebody, right? I mean, I thrived when the market crashed, became an REO short sale market. It was the same tactics. It was just learning to adapt and shift those messages to the right people, So would you say that these fundamental truths that you have learned, it doesn't matter if it's 19% interest rates or what a strong seller's market, like we're more experienced for the last few years, whether it's a good market or a bad market, how people define it, that those really apply. It's just learning to adapt of who to put that marketing message in front of.
100% yes. And what would be, as you said it so well, in what would be termed traditionally a bad market, that creates opportunities in other areas, and you just need to learn to identify them, quickly get capable in them, and then learn how to market in them to get that business. Again, it comes down to identifying where the market is and then knowing how to market into it to get the business. Agreed completely.
Yeah. It's just like, I remember when the market crashed out here, it's started feeling it in 2007, but really started, hitting hard in 2008. And, my 3 hours of prospecting time, instead of being focused on expireds or for sale by owners, now became REO asset managers, but it was still the same process, right? It was just transitioning that focus.